Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Exploring the Lord of the Rings. This is session number 301. And today, last time, we crossed the threshold into Moria. And today, we begin life in Moria in the dark under the mountains. And of course, we will mark the beginning of that stage by talking more about the Watcher in the Water, which is, of course, immediately what they do as soon as we as soon as we enter in. Anyway, so we will see. This is gonna be for a while. That is until we get to the Book of Mizarble, our last contemplation of the Watcher in the Water here, and then we will see about, maybe, who knows, maybe we will set off into Moria here this evening. It may take us some time before, as Dan points out, we see the sun again, right? Actually, if you count the sun coming through into the 21st Hall, it won't be that long. But anyway, yeah, we will probably we'll probably get there before too long. Madman says the first thing they do is hit the booze, if I remember right. You're exactly correct, sir. Yes, that's just what we're going to get to. Okay, but before we start off, quick announcement. So I just wanted to there are a lot of people who are asking a very sensible question. Because, of course, we have our big moot of the year, Mythmoot, is coming up soon. It is going to be on the week of the 21st of June. But many people are very sensibly asking the very important question, why is Mythmoot registration not open yet, despite that it's happening so very soon? The answer is one of those... you remember the passage, if you know C.S. Lewis's The Magician's Nephew, that passage at the beginning, or that passage in the middle, where it says, like, there was a long, tedious explanation of a grown-up sort behind this, and that's it's kind of like that, basically. There's a long, tedious explanation of a grown-up sort that has to do with bureaucracy and paperwork and the business offices of certain institutions not really functioning fully and properly. However, we through the continuous, patient, but persistent effort of the Queen of Mythmoot and Empress of Events at Signum, Laurel Stevens, we are finally... we have boxed them into a corner, and we are finally going to bring about the confirmation of the things we've been waiting. Anyway, it's been really long, so we're sorry that there's been this delay, but it is absolutely coming soon. And yeah, it does pretty much mean early bird pricing for everyone, Tomas. Absolutely. Anyway. So that is that's where we are. I have been informed that we are confidently hoping that the registration is going to open up later this week. So we will yes, but definitely by totally reliable sources, Bjorning, that Mythmoot registration will be open indeed later this week at long last, and we will all be so very grateful for that. Anyway, so just wanted to let folks know that's not just like a weird glitch or oversight. It's just been instead months of behind the scenes frustration. But yes, I believe Evil Dr. Cannon, the housing registration will be available at the same time. Yeah, I think they'll be ready to do all the things all at once when finally we get all the things. Okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure to reassure people about that, because Mythmoot is going to be awesome this year. Really, really looking forward to Mythmoot again. It has been a marvelous year of regional moots. We've had 10 regional moots this year, and it has been stupendous. I have had such a lovely time in the last 2 weeks at California and over in York, England, just having marvelous discussions with people, and what a great time to be able to connect with folks, coming together centrally at Mythmoot, and spending that longer period of time, getting to spend 4 days-ish in the company of everyone. Just such a delight, such a highlight of my every year. So I am very, very excited about that. Yes, Bob, that was a little bit sad. We did have to cancel Wild Rose Moot. We're hoping to figure that out again next time. We had some details falling through with the venue there at the last minute, and in the end, it was getting really shaky, and so we ended up just having to cancel that. That was sad. I was looking forward to going to Alberta for the first time, but I hope we have plans that we're working on to get back there, so I hope that we can get that together again, perhaps next year. We'll see how that works. But yes, Cunctator, absolutely. Ranger Moot is going to be awesome. You guys have heard me mention Ranger Moot, but Ranger Moot is going to be in September on the weekend of Bilbo's birthday, and we're going to have this 3-day-long outdoor moot where we're going to be doing outdoor activities. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of reenactments. I'm so excited for the reenactments. We're going to be doing like large-scale reenactments with lots of people. It's going to be so cool. It's going to be in the Cincinnati area at the huge, lovely Boy Scout camp there, and it's going to be awesome. Yep, we can. I suspect we can, in fact, reenact the Watcher in the Water. Indeed. So yeah, no, it's gonna be great. Oh yeah, Josh, and it's gonna be an awesome moot for kids and families as well. Yeah, so it's gonna be really fun. So there's gonna be outdoor activities like swimming and boating and archery and stuff like that, and there's also gonna be Cunctator tells me they have like a palisade. A wooden palisade and a castle. So yeah, like lots of reenactment possibilities there. So it's gonna be so much fun. Anyway, so yeah, so we're gonna have an excellent time. So we will look forward to that too. That's going to be in September. So we've got Mythmoot coming up in June, Ranger Moot in September, and already a number of other regional moots. Like the regional moot season for next year is already taking shape. We've got Cascade Moot already scheduled at the very end of August. We've got Middle Moot again. Out in, I think it's Kansas City this year. It is Kansas City again this year. We have New England Moot, of course, in October, as usual. Come to lovely New England in October. We're going to go back to the Southeast. We're going back to North Carolina. Lots and lots. And also, Stuttmoot. We're going to Germany for the first time. And even I've been hearing about plans for a moot in Belgium next year, next calendar year also. So anyway, lots and lots of stuff happening. Immensely cool plans for Sunshine Moot in Florida again next year. Anyway, so many event things coming on. Our event cycle, all of our regional events, just such a wonderful opportunity to connect with people. It is just such a delight. One of the programs that certainly brings me a great deal of joy. All right, let us get back to the text here. It's time to return to the dark. All right. The doors have boomed shut, and remember, Gandalf tried to open them, and they attempted to open, but failed to open because they were blocked from the outside. "Well, well," said the wizard. "The passage is blocked behind us now, and there is only one way out, on the other side of the mountains. I fear from the sounds that boulders have been piled up and the trees uprooted and thrown across the gate. I am sorry, for the trees were beautiful and had stood so long. I felt that something horrible was near from the moment that my foot first touched the water, said Frodo. What was the thing, or were there many of them? I do not know, answered Gandalf, but the arms were all guided by one purpose. Something has crept, or has been driven, out of dark waters under the mountains. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world. He did not speak aloud his thought, that whatever it was that dwelt in the lake, it had seized on Frodo first among all the company. Boromir muttered under his breath, but the echoing stone magnified the sound to a hoarse whisper that all could hear. In the deep places of the world, and thither we are going against my wish. Who will lead us now in this deadly dark? I will, said Gandalf, and Gimli shall walk with me. Follow my staff. Okay, so, Gandalf first gives his opinion of what happened, right? I fear from the sounds, he says, that boulders have been piled up. So we don't see that happen. We got the description of that sound last time. And now we get Gandalf explaining that he's pretty sure that was what happened, right? And the primary comment that we get from Gandalf is his sorrow about the trees. I am sorry, for the trees were beautiful. He's less sorry about the doors actually being blocked, I think, right? This is not what he expresses. He doesn't express, oh man, now we're hosed because the doors are blocked, right? The fact that there is only one way out on the other side of the mountains is, I think from Gandalf's perspective, not exactly a good thing. Like, hooray, we get to go through Moria. But remember, he has had the intuition that Moria was where they were supposed to go anyway, right? His heart has been telling him for some time that they would end up having to go this way. And now, of course, they have been forced this way. If sort of events have accomplished anything for Gandalf here, they have removed any possibility of doubt that this is the way that they should go, right? Remember that even at the last second, when Gandalf looked like he wasn't going to be able to open the doors, remember Boromir saying, don't let Bill run away, we may need him yet, right? There was still, even up until all the way up until the attack of the Watcher, there was still the possibility that they might somehow try to escape by a different route, right? And Boromir, of course, unsurprisingly, was the one who seemed to be holding out for that, right? But Mick Bombadil, I agree, it is like the choice was made for them. Yeah, exactly. Nobody can contest. If, any kind of debate, uncertainty, dissension, any temptation Boromir might have had just to leave and go on his own, right? Just to say, like, look, I'm out. I'm not signed up for this, right? I didn't swear any vows. I was told I could leave anytime I wanted to, and I'm not going to Moria. Thank you very much, right? Like that, even that has been taken off the table. Dr. Benway, that's exactly it. Circumstances have basically pushed them in the doors, not giving them any option to turn away from their path. So Gandalf sort of points out that clear fact, right? So as I say, I don't think he's disappointed about that. In the end, his disappointment is about the death of the trees. And as we saw, the trees, those trees not only were beautiful and had stood so long, they were the last. They used to be two of the whole avenue of trees that extended from the door. But all the rest of the avenue of trees have already been killed. But those two had survived. And we saw, you will remember the description of them kind of clinging on, and that sense of almost like a frontier of struggle, right? Between life and death, right? Between growth and corruption. That was, oh, interesting. Trifle says, when I said the trees, She heard the trees, capital T. Should we be thinking about the two trees perhaps here? I mean, not explicitly, I don't think so. But at the same time, Trifle, it's not like it's a ridiculous and absurd thing to be thinking about, right? Especially since we've just gotten the Star of Feanor. One of, I believe, 2 times, the word Feanor's name comes up in the Lord of the Rings, I believe just the twice. That one, the Star of Feanor, in the description of the door, and Gandalf's kind of fanboy moment, right, when he's talking about Feanor and wishing that he could see the unimaginable hand and mind of Feanor at work in the Palantir, right? I believe those are the 2 times that Feanor is mentioned in the Lord of the Rings. So we've just had the reference to Feanor and to the High Elves, and in the context of this image of 2 trees, right? So, as I say, Trifle, like, obviously, it's not weird to be thinking about them, but I certainly don't think there's any sort of obvious connection. But is there a sort of echo here? As Little Room Johnny says, this isn't the first time 2 significant trees were destroyed by an evil, foul creature. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yes. And Bjorning, I agree. Boromir's horns point. Gandalf begins his journey through Moria with pity. That is a lovely thought, right? It is. The very first thing that he focuses on is not their own peril. It's not their fear. It's not the, calculating the probability of their survival. It is taking a moment in pity to contemplate the death of the trees. Yeah. Bob, you're certainly correct that Feanor is mentioned a few other times in the appendices, but yeah, no, I was thinking the main body of the text. Yeah. Yep. But thinking back to that last point that I was making, there is another sort of element of tragedy, right, in the loss of those trees that had stood so long. As I said, it was like a battlefield. It was like the frontier between life, ancient, beautiful life, ancient, beautiful, elf adjacent life, right? And then this, not only the decay that comes with change and the passage of time, but with active corruption and, the sort of attack on the area through the corruption of whatever that thing is that's in the water. And they are, it's hard not to feel like they're in some way responsible, right? The thing had not bothered to rip up those trees at any point previous to this, right? But now it's ripped up the trees. And so it's, at least indirectly, a little bit their fault, right? That their own passage through here has ended up causing, indirectly, the death of those trees, the final end of that battle, the death of the last living things in this area that remember Eregion, that remember the friendship of the elves and dwarves. Remember Legolas's comments that although the stones remember, the trees and the grass didn't remember the elves of Eregion, but those 2 trees did, right? And now they're gone, right? Now they're dead as well. Yeah, Matt, I agree. It's an ending of the echo of the good of the Second Age that was carried over into the Third Age. They almost made it into the Fourth Age. Yeah, exactly. And so in this way, having, one of the things that we're kind of transitioning here, right? We have been in and around Moria, in Eregion, in Holland, right? And Karathras and all this stuff. We're out of that zone now, right? And one of the things that we were thinking about, we were confronting, ancient good and ancient evil, right? Sometimes you listen to stones and they say wistful, sad, but beautiful things about the elves. Sometimes you listen to stones and they try to bring avalanches and snowstorms down upon you, right? So different spirits of different rocks may act different ways. But still, again, we've been in that sort of that frontier. We've been encountering the memory of ancient things, some strange and dangerous, and perhaps evil, perhaps just cranky. We don't really know. And others certainly good. And yes, the sense that they did harm, I think, is hard. But in any case, that phase is over now, and it ends with this final note of tragedy, right? They brought this era, they brought those last memories to an end. Bjorning, I think it has to be one of the last monuments of the elves in the Second Age. And yes, it's in its own way a memorial, a remembrance of the unique friendship then between elves and dwarves. Yes, think of it this way too. If those trees, which are associated with the elves, are the memories of that relationship between elves and dwarves, those happier days that Gandalf was recalling, think of the symbolism of what the Watcher has done, right? Now those trees, which marked the doorway, the friendship gate, right, where you just had to declare the word friend, you should just say the word friend, right, declare your friendship in order to get in. Now those symbols of friendship have not only been killed, they've been used to bar the door and prevent it from opening. It's not only the death of those trees, it's a really tragic perversion of what they literally stood for, right? And now that they've been ripped down, they're now being put to exactly the opposite use. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Trifle, you're right. Trifle's saying we'll get this idea called out again in Lothlorien. Lothlorien also is going to be a casualty of the quest. Yeah. And in some ways, of course, well, if we reflect on Middle-earth history, we'll not be surprised, right? When do you mark the end of an age? How do you know you're at the end of an age in Middle-earth? End of the First Age, end of the Second Age, end of the Third Age. Well, you know, yeah, that when the big bad goes down, right? That's the end of the age. But that always correlates in history with destruction, right? With the ruin of Beleriand, with the last alliance of elves and men, right? Which will never happen again. With the end of the last end of the Elder Days on Middle Earth, and the end, the beginning of the Dominion of Men and the passing of the Firstborn, right? Even when, they're all of them victories. The defeat of Morgoth once and Sauron twice, but Ambrosius, as you say, great loss associated with them. Many things shall pass away. So yeah, it's this is it's a kind of this is not going to be the last time, as Trifle was pointing out, that we will see the passing of the quest of the ring, which is, for good or ill, gonna be the end of the age, right? going to usher in. That's the dice roll that Gandalf and Elrond decided on, right? At the Council of Elrond. They could have tried to stretch things out, right? By giving the ring to Tom Bombadil, or holding onto the ring themselves in Rivendell, or whatever, right? They could have tried to stretch it out a little bit longer. But instead, they're sending the ring to Mordor. Either the ring will be destroyed and put out of Sauron's reach permanently, or he'll get it back, one or the other, right? So, the age is ending, and many things will pass. Yes, many hopes will wither in this bitter spring, Bjorning. Exactly so. Exactly so. Okay, but now back to the Watcher. Frodo immediately pipes in. He's less worried about the trees, and he's still thinking about the creature. Again, notice Gandalf doesn't talk about that. Notice, in fact, Gandalf avoids it entirely. Notice Gandalf's persistent use of the passive voice in that first paragraph. The passage is blocked. Boulders have been piled, and the trees uprooted and thrown across the gate. All of those are passive voice verbs, right? Gandalf does not, seems to not even want to talk about the thing that actually did the actions here, right? And instead he focuses on what has happened, and therefore what lies in front of them, right? The way out on the other side of the mountains. And again, he talks about the effects. Boulders have been piled up. Trees have been uprooted and thrown across the gate, right? Passages have been blocked, but he doesn't, whether he doesn't want to talk about it or whether he just doesn't bring it up, he's emphatically not talking about it in that first paragraph. But Frodo has none of it. Frodo goes right back there. I felt that something terrible was near from the moment that my foot first touched the water, said Frodo. What was the thing? Or were there many of them? Frodo wants answers. And of course, the reference to his foot is interesting, as it was his foot that was attacked, right? The moment my foot first touched the water, meaning when they waded across that little, what was the word? Creek, right? That little creek, in the, at the edge of the pond, at the edge of the lake. Yeah. So he recalls touching the water with his foot. What he doesn't recall is when the water reaches out and touches his foot, right? Right back. What was the thing, or were there many of them, is what Frodo asks. Something horrible is how he describes it, and he wants to know, what was the thing, or were there many of them? I do not know, answered Gandalf, but the arms were all guided by one purpose. So Gandalf is not sure, but it is clearly his opinion. It is clearly his opinion that there was one thing. He's going to go on in the rest of this paragraph to talk about it in the singular. Something has crept or has been driven. So Gandalf seems to believe that there was one creature there. And that seems most likely, given how they were acting, the fact that the arms seemed to be acting, if blindly, yet nevertheless in concert, right? And I would say even honestly, the approach of the creature and the wave in the water suggests a single large thing rather than many small things. If there were in fact like multiple snakes, not that they're really snakes, right? But if those were all individual creatures, you would have expected the whole surface of the lake to be, like writhing with water. Like we get the water stirred up when the arms start coming out there at the end. But I'm talking about the approach of the creature and that one single wave that's described. So Gandalf believes it was, the answer to Frodo's question is that it was one thing, not many things. The arms were all guided by one purpose. Something has crept or has been driven out of dark waters under the mountains. So Gandalf gives two theories about how this creature came to be there. Remember, Gandalf knew from the beginning that this is a at least comparatively recent development, right? This thing has not been a feature of the landscape here for ages, right? Like Gimli, for instance, is not going to know. He's not going to have, like he knows about Carothras, and has heard legends of Carothras, even though he's never been here before. But he doesn't know anything about the Watcher in the Water because this is a recent phenomenon, something that has come out here since Gandalf came through, right? So there are two possibilities that Gandalf gives. Something has crept or has been driven. Either it came in its own volition or it was driven out. That itself, by the way, is a little bit vague. Does that mean that it was sent out? Like somebody said, I want that creature to go and guard the gates, or whatever, to just to park itself outside the gates. So I'm gonna force it to go there. So that's one possibility, right? That in being driven out, it was ultimately obeying the will of someone else who wanted it there. Or it could be a little bit more serendipitous than that, right? It could have been driven out by something else, not because that thing wanted it to go to the gate, but because it wanted it to leave wherever it was, right? Something else was moving in on its territory or something like that. So either way, the two choices really are it came here just because it wanted to, or it was sent here by something else. And this then leads to the question which Gandalf doesn't address directly, but which we can certainly imagine, given that the gate stream has been dammed, right? We know the gate stream has been dammed, so either the Watcher did that the Watcher did that itself, or something else did it in order to plant the Watcher there. Yeah. Jackie, I agree. Jackie says it doesn't seem like the kind of creature that would relocate without a bit of a nudge. Yeah. Notice how that sentence, Gandalf's second sentence there in that paragraph, the Creptor has been driven sentence, makes the third sentence a little bit ambiguous, right? There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world. I've always read that as being a description of the Watcher, right? Basically, this is Gandalf saying, yeah, whatever that thing was, it totally came from the deep places of the world. And, I don't want to freak you out or anything, but it's fairly typical of the, old and foul things that do in fact dwell in the deep places of the world, right? So, kind of par for the course around here. This is the sort of thing we have to expect. So anyway, I always read that sentence as referring to the Watcher. But I'm now realizing that can be taken in a completely different way. Couldn't he be describing whatever it was that drove the Watcher out of the dark waters under the mountains? There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep place. See, something has crept or has been driven out there are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world. Orcs, of course, have driven out everything else from Moria. I mean, all non-Balrog things, right? And the occasional troll. But, yeah, well, no, hang on. In retrospect, this works as, you know, an allusion to the Balrog, but he's not thinking of the Balrog yet. Yeah, Gandalf does not expect the Balrog. Even if there are rumors, as Galadriel and Celeborn are going to say eventually, that there is something, like, everybody knows, everybody who's been around for a really long time knows about the existence of Durin's Bane, even though they don't know what it is. Gandalf is not in any way suggesting that he thinks the Watcher in the Water is Durin's Bane that has come wandering out here, right? Right. Little and Johnny, I think that's exactly it. I don't think that orcs would be capable of making the Watcher in the Water do anything either. I don't think that the orcs are the ones that drove it out. Again, that would be that second reading of that third sentence. Gandalf saying, yeah, so you know that orcs have infested this place and they've driven out everything that's been here. But you know what? There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world. There are things down there that could totally have driven that Watcher out here, right? Whatever that thing in the water was, yeah, believe me, there are things down in the deep places of the world that are capable of driving that sucker out here, right? Right, like an even bigger tentacular creature, Kendall. Exactly. Yeah. I again, and he doesn't know about the Balrog. And by the way, I don't see any reason certainly to believe that it was the Balrog, even knowing what we know from later on. I don't see. I don't believe Tolkien is ever going to tell us either what the Watcher is or why it's in the lake. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see. We may get some more data on that later on, but I don't think it's going to really change things. Anyway. He did not speak. Let's now talk about the sentence that Gandalf doesn't say. But wait, actually, hang on, Matt. Yeah, that's a really good. That's a kind of a good synopsis here. Matt says it's interesting to consider the Watcher as an entity like Tom Bombadil, an uncomfortable settler in the story that deepens the world but feels odd within it. Yeah, and I would also say, like Tom Bombadil, a creature of like unknown power and antiquity whose business has nothing to do with the main business of the story, right? Who certainly doesn't seem to be an enemy of Sauron, but we don't have any clear reason to believe I should say, is working for Sauron, right? Is just being ancient and powerful and doing its own thing, right? And when mortals wander into its area, things get interesting, right? Fun and interesting, like meeting Tom Bombadil, perhaps. Or, creepy, life-threatening and interesting, like with Karathras or the Watcher, right? But yeah, exactly, Jackie. It's isolated in its own little realm, and the Fellowship trespasses on it. When did the horror fall upon Frodo? When his foot first touched the water. Boromir wasn't the first one to disturb the water. They were when they waded across it, right? So, yeah. I mean, they were trespassing. It has its little realm, Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yes. Um, now, but Dizzy, just as you say, back to the question of the ring. Gandalf. We're here told Gandalf's thought that he does not speak aloud. Whatever it was that dwelt in the lake, it had seized on Frodo first among all the company. Little Johnny asks exactly the question that I was just thinking. Who wrote this line? Frodo, I think. I think it's very possible that they had later conversation with Gandalf about this, right? That, when they talked over their adventures in Minas Tirith before the wedding and all that kind of thing, right? They went back over this moment and Gandalf said something about this, right? I didn't want to say anything at the time, but, it was interesting that it seized on Frodo first among all the company. Exactly. Caleros was thinking the same thing. That's very possible. That's very possible. And so Frodo puts it in that Gandalf didn't speak it aloud, but he was totally thinking this, right? That seems to me the likeliest explanation of that sentence. Unfortunately, the likeliest explanation of what it means is a little bit less clear. It seized on Frodo first among all the company. So what? Exactly what does that suggest about the relationship? Because that it has something to do with the ring seems pretty clear, right? I think that's the implication. And I also think, of course, that that's what's inhibiting Gandalf from saying it aloud. He doesn't want people even thinking or speculating about this, right? Yeah, now, Jackie, he did trespass, but they all kind of did. I mean, Frodo talks about his foot first touching the water, like the first time his foot touched the water. But all their feet touched the water. So I don't think it was Frodo uniquely. He might have been first. Like, he might have gone in, he might have been in front, potentially. That's conceivable. But I don't know. I think the implication is that it singles out Frodo for some reason because of the ring. However, even if we... So let's, for a moment, for argument's sake, assume that it has something to do with the ring, right? Yeah, I kind of doubt Frodo was first across the water too, Rowan. Oh, you're right. Vardendil, I totally agree with Vardendil. Gimli was surely in front. No question. Yeah, no, Vardendil, you're absolutely right. Right? Who's beating Gimli to the walls of Moria, right? Not only is Gimli in front, Gimli's going to be like 50 yards in front of everybody else, surely, right? Yeah. Okay. So again, let's assume it has something to do with the ring. What does it have to do with the ring? What exactly does it imply, or could it imply, that the Watcher seized on Frodo first among all the company? Does it... So let's just, like... What I like to do at moments like this is to think of all of the possibilities and then consider them, right? Okay, so first, just possibilities. Let's not analyze yet. We'll just come up with possibilities. 1, the Watcher desired the ring for itself and was attempting to acquire the ring, right? Okay, so that's one possibility. Another possibility. Because it sensed the ring, it deemed that Frodo was the greatest threat, and so therefore wanted to eliminate Frodo first. It sensed the power of the ring and was like, let's drown that one first, right? Third, maybe it's aired. I really like that theory. The tentacles were groping blindly, as far as we could tell. Maybe it could sense the ring, and that just helped it target Frodo sooner. Not because it wanted the ring, not because even, we don't even know if it can reason. Like, it might just be an animal of some kind. It could even be a plant, as we were suggesting. I think the balance of the evidence is against its being a plant, but I don't think that was absolutely ruled out by anything that we heard. In any case, like, this thing might not be intelligent at all. Like, it's possible. It's possible it has the intelligence of a wad of kelp, right? I don't think there is anything in it anything that we saw it do that rules that out. So yes, it's possible that in some way it can sense the ring. And so that just, like, it's like, well, I think there are other creatures there. I'm blind, and I think there are other creatures there, but there's definitely one right there. Let me grab that one, right? Yeah. So that's possible. Any other possibilities? Now, again, some of you guys are jumping ahead. Don't jump ahead now, right? We're thinking of possible reasons. Like, why would it seize on Frodo first? What are the what explanation is there for why it seized on Frodo first? And then we'll consider which of those, right? Okay, the mithril coat. Maybe. Conceivably. Oh, so JJ, you're right. We should consider that that's certainly a logical option, that it could be simply chance. Yeah, absolutely. That has to be considered as a possibility. What was I going to... Oh, yeah, the mithril coat. Yeah. Carrie says mithril coat. It's true. That is another thing. Now, our minds leap to the ring right away. But it is not the only, as Carrie points out, it's not the only thing that separates, that differentiates Frodo from everybody else. Frodo is also the only one wearing mithril. And you might say, well, why should that matter? Well, I don't know, but this is apparently a native Khazad-dûm creature, right? So, that it might have some exposure to mithril, and who knows? Maybe it eats mithril. We have no idea, right? Maybe that's how it got so big, eating a bunch of mithril way down in the deep places of the world under Khazad-dûm. Could be. It's true that Gandalf doesn't know about the coat yet, Little Room Johnny, but at the same time, it doesn't matter, because we know it, right? So, again, we're talking about what would have motivated the Watcher, not what Gandalf would speculate. Because Gandalf doesn't give us any theories. That's important to notice, right? Gandalf puts forward no theories about why, or even mentally. We're just told by the narrator that Gandalf is thinking that it is somehow significant that it seized on Frodo, and that's exactly what we're trying to figure out. Oh, Michael, that's interesting. He's an elf friend. We have had other creatures that have met them just be able to tell that Frodo was different because he was named an elf friend. That's true. But wouldn't you think it would have gone for the actual elf, right? If it's like elf flavoring that it's going for, right? First you take the 100% pure item, right? Then you take the one that just kind of smells like elves a little bit, right? Tomas says he might have been trained by the dwarves to track mithril. Exactly. This thing could have been like a truffle hunting pig or something. Yeah. You're right, Gildalwyn. Aragorn is an elf friend too. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, that doesn't distinguish Frodo enough. It is interesting, again, because it did make Frodo stand out among the four hobbits at the beginning of the story. But you're right. Okay. Well, hang on. So, Bjorning, I see that, but that's not the first. That's a second order theory. That's a theory about why it might have wanted the ring. We haven't gotten there yet. we haven't gotten there yet. Good, Dan. There you go. That's another. What is another thing that is unique about Frodo compared to all the rest of the party? He's the only one who has been wraithified by a Morgul blade. So could there be some mark of shadow on him? We will be told that Frodo himself is going to notice that he still experiences permanent after effects of that wraithification experience, right? Or nearly wraithification experience, or that semi-wraithification experience. Yeah. Astro Gypsy points out that Aragorn has passed the elf friend zone. True. He's not just in the friend zone with elves now, is he? But still. Yeah. Okay. Yes, exactly, Vardendil, that's it. The permanent after effects of wraithification, Frodo, like Glorfindel, exists at once in both worlds. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the taint of darkness. All right, so what are we up to? 5 theories? Let's count again. It wants the ring for some reason. It can detect Frodo because it can detect the ring, so it can see Frodo better than it can see anybody else. It is smelling the mithril. It is smelling the shadow of wraithification on him. It's a coincidence. Was there another one? I feel like we're skipping one. Frodo being the greatest threat. That was it. Frodo being the greatest threat. Yeah. Okay. So that's enough to be going on with. Let's go through what we think is the most or least likely. I think it is possible. The wraithification thing is really, really interesting. There's a lot that I like about that theory. What I don't like about that theory is nothing anywhere around here. We would need some trigger, right? If there is any association between Frodo I'm thinking of both the mithril theory and the Morgul blade theory, right? The mithril theory and the Morgul blade theory, if the text is inviting us to make a connection with either one of those two things, we need a little prompting, right? It's been a long time since we've had any reference to the mithril coat. Yeah, it's true that he's wearing it. But again, we've not been reminded of that in ages and ages, right? Nor has any reference been made that I recall to his Morgul blade. That will come soon, so it's conceivable. But I think that if that's what Tolkien is thinking, that if either one of those, the mithril or the Morgul blade, are like what was in Tolkien's mind to explain the attraction of the Watcher to Frodo, there would have been some reference, right? Some reference. So I don't dismiss those, but I think that those are less likely. JJ, of course, you were perfectly right to point out that we should consider coincidence, but we've also been kind of taught not to put much faith in the idea that things, in fact, are coming about totally by chance. So that also seems unlikely. Well, no. Graham, I'm not going to consider other evidence that we don't have yet. Only what we have here. So what does that leave us? That leaves us with the 3 ring explanations, right? Yep. Okay, that brings us to the ring. And that always seemed like the likeliest explanation anyway, right? The likeliest explanation is that it's the ring that it's detecting. The mere fact that Gandalf makes this association and doesn't talk about it already suggests to me that Gandalf is thinking about the ring. Okay. So which of those 3 ring explanations then is most likely? It wants the ring, it's targeting Frodo by the ring, or it feels that Frodo is the greatest threat and is trying to eliminate him first. I don't believe that last one, because that shows evidence of reason on the part of the Watcher that I don't think we have any cause, any justification in ascribing to it. So yeah, that it would be saying like, there is one among them who is great and powerful, and like I shall assault it first, for strategic reasons. Like that requires a lot of thinking, and we don't have any evidence that this thing even has a brain, or senses for that matter. So I don't believe that one. So that leaves it desires the ring, or it is sensing Frodo by the ring. Now, Michael, I agree. The ring-assisted targeting system does really begin to seem plausible, right? Yeah. Oh, Boromir's Horn, that's really hard. Boromir's Horn says Gandalf also has a ring and is far more powerful with it than Frodo. First of all, I mean, I think... first of all, I come back to the eternal Narya problem, right? It is fun to join Tolkien in the excellent and admirable sport of retcon, but I do not feel that that Gandalf's possession of Narya the Great can be used as an explanation, as an answer to any question about the text, just because there's a sequence thing, right? I mean, when Tolkien wrote this, that ring didn't exist. So again, it doesn't mean that it's inappropriate to think about, but it's not appropriate to me as an explanation. Like, that's why I can't live with that to me, it doesn't answer the question. Again, we can say like, well, thinking about Narya, then what would we make of the situation? Yeah. Okay, JJ, yeah, sorry, you're right. And I think I saw somebody else mentioning something like this also. That is, an additional possibility. Could it have been contacted by someone who directed it towards Frodo? Does it have information that is leading it to get Frodo? Has it been, did somebody sick it on them, whether it be Sauron or whether it be Gollum or whoever? I'm right back to my brain problem, right? Not one of the many problems I habitually have with my own brain, but rather the problem of ascribing a brain to the Watcher, right? Which I have a hard time doing. So yeah, I don't buy that. In order for it to be someone's willing or unwilling minion, it has to have a will and it has to have a brain. And I'm not convinced it has either one of those. Okay. So again, I come back to the other two. The reason I like the other two theories, that is, it's targeting Frodo because it can sense the ring. It's not doing anything about the ring. It's just like, there's something there I can tell, right? Or it desires the ring. The thing that I like about those two things is that neither one of them requires a brain on the part of the Watcher, right? Just some kind of perception, somehow or other. And I don't have any difficulty believing the Watcher capable of either one of those things, right? Exactly. Colin and Miss Ray would be some kind of instinct. Vardendale, no evidence this thing's a cephalopod, remember, right? No evidence. It has tentacles, but we have no reason to believe it's a cephalopod. Yeah. Jackie, the only reason I suspect the Watcher of being evil in some sense is not only its foulness, but the foulness of the lake, right? The fact that the land around it has become corrupt that's a bad look, right? That almost always correlates with an actively malevolent creature. So I think it's likely that it is both old and foul. Yeah. Johnny, we do have to ask the question, could it be corrupted in the way that the land was corrupted? That is, might it be a victim in a sense, right? Not the cause of the corruption, but a victim of the corruption. It's possible. Johnny, I'm trying to, like, we could do some kind of like some kind of rehabilitation of the Watcher, right? Pity for the Watcher. Exactly. So quested. It might just be misunderstood. I don't think so. I think it's a bad egg. Okay. Targeting or desire? At first blush, all of the preference, all of the force of the narrative would suggest desire. I say that because everything desires the ring, right? One of the things that is most persistently correlated with the ring is desire. Exactly, Miss Ray. That's what the ring does. Yes, exactly. Right, except for Tom Bombadil, who is an exception to almost everything. Agreed. That the ring's effect on creatures is to make them view the ring as precious and desirable is a very persistent, like, that happens everywhere. Could it happen to the Watcher? Possibly. Now, so let's say I do think the targeting thing is a perfectly viable reading. And by the way, what would the significance then of Gandalf's thought be? The significance would be, it would be not a testimony to the power of the ring over the Watcher. Instead, it would be a statement about how much danger Frodo is in, right? The perception, that thing, like the power, the evil of the ring that Frodo bears is putting a big fat target on his back, right? That, like, what would be in Gandalf's head if that were the case, or if that were what Gandalf himself suspected, then what Gandalf is thinking but not saying would be, this hobbit is walking around this world with a big old kill me sign on his back, right? He is drawing danger to himself like Glorfindel told him he would do. Little Room Johnny, it's like the opposite of Bilbo's luck. Exactly. So I do think that theory, the targeting by the power of the ring theory, has a lot going for it. And again, I think that it thematically fits. Of course, it is also clear, isn't it, why Gandalf wouldn't say that aloud at this particular juncture, right? Yeah. Boy, the ring sure drew that monster straight to you, Frodo, didn't it? Right? Kind of sucks to be, and we're going to go down right now into the deep places of the world where there are more things like that might pop out of the, pop out of the darkness and go for you particularly at any moment here. Yeah. Wow. Gosh. Glad it's not me, right? I mean, anyway, so we can see why Gandalf wouldn't say that. So that all holds together, I think, really quite well. Not good for the morale of the company, and especially for Frodo. Absolutely. But let's go back to the desire question. Here I want to ask the second order question and go through some more options. If it desires the ring, why would it desire the ring? What is it in fact that the ring would desire? Because I can see two options here. One option is that it desires the power of the ring for itself in some way. It wants to possess the ring. And that is the one that fits best if, again, we're thinking about the general trend of how the ring affects people, right? Exactly. It might not know why it desires, it just desires it, Kendall. Exactly. I'm not saying that it has a plan, necessarily. I'm not saying necessarily, though this would be a charming exercise, wouldn't it? Here's your creative writing prompt for the day. Write the ring-induced monologue of the Watcher in the Water. Right? If everybody gets a ring-induced monologue when it's under the influence of the desire of the possession of the, when they're under the influence of the desire for the possession of the ring, what is going through the Watcher's head? Right? Surely there would be a monologue, right? That would be awesome. But anyway, okay. So that's one possibility for why it would desire the ring, but it's not the only possibility, right? The other, it wants a lake swollen to a realm, evil Dr. Cannon. Yeah, it could, right? Perhaps it would join Gollum the Great in fish fresh from the sea 3 times a day. Who knows? I think, though, that there is another clear reason of why it would desire the ring that doesn't necessarily have to do with wielding or possessing the ring. It could want to eat it. That's another, like, to take in the power of the ring to itself. I'm thinking here of Ungoliant. Yes, that's what Lady Wakata said way back when. Yes, ready to consider that now. Exactly. Consuming it like an aquatic Ungoliant. Exactly so. That is the other. And also, remember, it's not just Ungoliant. This is a known reaction, right? When confronted with a powerful thing, the evil thing tries to eat it, right? Karkaroth and the Silmaril, right? That's what it does. Big, shiny, powerful Silmaril, chomp, right? Didn't go well, but that's what it did. Ungoliant is able to, I mean, she's a higher order creature, it seems, than Karkaroth for sure. You can tell because she can digest these things. Not Silmarils. She didn't get to try that one, but she was keen to, right? Kendall says, to be fair, dogs try to eat anything they come across. It was a very doggy response. I do admit. But I will also say that it is interesting that, well, I was going to say it's interesting that Shelob doesn't try to eat the ring, but we don't absolutely know that she won't. I know one of you was pointing out earlier that Gollum believes that Shelob will have no interest in the ring. How does he know? Are we sure Gollum is right? I'm not sure Gollum is right. Right? Maybe he's right. But yeah, I think he's, it's also at least as likely that he's fooling himself. But, yeah. Anyway, Trifle, I totally agree with you. If Ungoliant was able to eat the trees, she'd probably manage to consume the Silmarils. Totally agree. Okay. Anyway. So I do think we have to consider as a viable possibility just within the context of Tolkien's world, that a powerful evil creature, when it perceives another item of power like that, is going to try to eat it, to consume it, to, absorb its power into itself. And that would be a form of desire. I think it much more likely than that the Watcher is actually performing a monologue here, right? That was kind of a joke. I don't think it wants to possess the ring and set itself up as the great and mighty, squid/kelp creature, right? What does it eat when it can't get rings? Yeah, I just don't know. I just don't know. So yeah. Well, that's interesting. Yes, Tarlonio points out that it would be odd. It would be odd if the Watcher could pinpoint the location of the ring more accurately than the Nazgul do. It's true. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, there are other circumstantial evidence, like the Watcher is in its center of power, and the Nazgul are very, very far from it, and in the Shire. Remember, the Nazgul are operating under some serious handicaps. Remember how I feel pity for the Nazgul. Hey, let's go back to Weathertop and talk about that. Just kidding. Just a joke. Anyway, so yeah. I think the two most likely explanations, therefore, are A, it sensed the presence of the ring and was trying to eat it, or B, that it just was trying to eat Frodo and it could sense that he was there because of the ring. That it was blindly searching the beach and was like, well, I know where one of them is. Like, I can sense one thing there, so I'll go for that thing straight off. Yeah. And of those two, I'm not sure. I don't think the detector one isn't the most likely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is possible, Kendall, that the ring might have made Frodo seem bigger, more powerful, and more of a mule, in a sense. Yeah. Yeah. And no, Trifle, we don't know that it was trying to eat anything, for sure. We can't absolutely prove that it was... We don't know that it has a mouth, right? So we can't absolutely prove that it was going to actually eat Frodo, or the ring, or indeed anything. Or does it, in fact, eat? We don't know. Yeah. Matt, that seems to me likely. Matt says, it can sense Frodo in the way Frodo can sense it. The Nazgul were more successful at tracking Frodo once he had begun to cross over into their world. The Watcher has the advantage that Frodo is there now in a way he wasn't in the Prancing Pony. Yeah, no, I don't think that means... I don't think it's in exactly the same way. It's analogous to the Nazgul, but I doubt it's identical. That is, I don't think the Watcher is a wraith, right? Or on the other side, or anything like that. I think it's... but I agree with the point that you make. Frodo sensed it. We saw him in his speech to Boromir, and what he just said. I felt that something horrible was near from the moment my foot first touched the water. Frodo could sense its presence. And it seems to me very, very likely that it could sense Frodo's presence, all of their presence. But that it could somehow sense Frodo's more clearly because of his having the ring, because again of having that target on his back, because he's got the ring. I think I'm liking that theory. What I like about it is that it wants to eat the ring absolutely asserts, like relies upon the fact that eating Frodo is definitely its goal, right? But it was going for Frodo because it could detect him most clearly doesn't suggest. I mean, it might, it fits with its desire to eat Frodo, but it doesn't rely upon that. Yeah. Anyway, that was a fascinating exercise. I have to admit, that didn't end up where I thought it was going to end up, actually. Yes, Eric, that's kind of the theory. That it wanted to eat him, or went for him at least, only because it could sense him more, not because he was more attractive. Yeah. I mean, it might make it. I mean, maybe he fancies whatever that, the particular tang of Ring of Power, evil Ring of Power, not Gandalf's. Right. So Dizzy says, did it inadvertently uproot trees as a tantrum for losing its ring dinner? Well, here's another possibility. What if the arms emerge searching for them? Remember, the arms are fewing all up along the cliff wall and along the doors, which means they were fewing the trees, right? What if it hadn't even been aware of the trees? I mean, it clearly didn't go for the trees earlier, right? Watchers had tons of opportunities to destroy those trees earlier if it wanted to do it, right? This also, by the way, to me, seems to work against the theory that it's piling up the trees because it has some sort of duty, sentinel duty, right, to prevent entry. If that were the case, why didn't it pile up the boulders and trees long before, right? Yeah. McBombadil says it sensed power greater than its own and was afraid. Just like it fled from something else down below. Possibly. Yeah. Oh, we'll get to that, Matt. I'm waiting for that. I will just say, I don't want to be totally coy about it. I don't find the evidence of the Book of Mizarble very revealing about the nature of the Watcher. That it does kill some of the dwarves doesn't tell me very much, because we don't know all of the circumstances or what, in fact, like the dwarves were doing, right? Yeah. And we know that the dwarves dub it the Watcher, and we do not know that that's an accurate label. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I'm on team, it senses like a ring detector to sense Frodo. I think on balance, that seems to me to fit best with all the things that we've seen. Last point, and then field drip time. Boromir's comments. Boromir, on the one hand, says a genuinely impolitic thing here, right? Boromir muttered under his breath, in the deep places of the world, and thither we are going against my wish. Who will lead us now in this deadly dark? In his defense, he doesn't think he's saying this out loud, right? He's muttering this under his breath. He didn't expect other people to hear it. What does that show? Right? What that shows is, but he still said it, right? Like he had to say it. And that is to say, he felt he had to say it, right? He still chose to say it out loud. Bjorni, I agree. I think that Boromir is still panicked. I think he's very panicked right now. An hour ago, he had an answer to that question. Who will lead us now? Right? Ask Boromir that question an hour before. What's he going to say? Me. That's what he's going to say, right? When he says to Gandalf, like, what did you lead us here for? Oh my gosh, when I thought that, like, you couldn't get any more incompetent as a leader. The mountain was bad enough, but now, right now you lead us. First you tell us to go through this, like, hideously dangerous place, and everyone else is going with you, and so I'm being a good trooper and going along, but now you can't even get us into the dangerous place? Good grief, does your incompetence know no bounds, right? I mean, like, he already is making a plan, right? That's what when he tells Sam not to let the pony go, he's making a plan, right? Like, it is not too late to head for the Gap of Rohan, right? But yes, Dizzy, that's exactly it. There are no alternatives now, and he knows it, right? Now that they are locked inside Moria and the only way out is the other side of the mountain, he knows for a fact he cannot lead them in this deadly dark, right? But his faith in Gandalf's leadership is low, right? Who will lead us now in this deadly dark? And please don't tell me the wizard, right? But yeah, Colin, that's exactly it. He has got to trust others here. This is Boromir feeling helpless in the deep places of the world. Well, crap. I can't do anything here. I'm helpless here. And thither we are going against my wish. I said this was a bad idea. I said we shouldn't go, and now we're trapped. Right? Yes, MD Waddell, totally agree. He's been trusting others, and things keep getting worse. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He's been super patient, and that has turned out very, very badly. But Bjorning, that's exactly what I was thinking. He is probably, for the first time in his life, actually helpless. Boromir knows, not only does he not have the power, like, actually lack the ability to lead the party to safety, he couldn't even save himself. Left to himself here, left in charge of the party, he would die and they would all die, and he knows it. There's no hope. There's no chance of his leading them out of this. But he knows, and therefore, I should say, he knows someone has to lead them. If they're to survive, someone has to lead them. And Gandalf hears and volunteers. Who shall lead us now in this deadly dark? Because, of course, from his perspective, what's the answer to that question? The one who led us into the deadly dark. The one who brought us to the deep places of the world against his wish. That's the only answer, and it's not a great answer, right? Gandalf's response is, I will. Trust me, says Gandalf, right? And Gimli shall walk with me. Back to the subcommittee idea, right? That is, Gandalf is not just claiming, I will, don't worry, I got this. He doesn't just say that. And Gimli shall walk with me. This is boosting Gimli's morale, which, like, even despite the horrors of the gate and the attack from the Watcher in the water, is still having the best day of his life. Like, still counts. But in any case, he's pointing out not only that he in fact is capable of leading them in this deadly dark, but also that there are other resources as well, right? Yeah. Is this Gandalf trying to boost Gimli's morale against what they find in the chamber? No, because I don't think Gandalf knows that yet or has any reason to suspect that yet. But he certainly wants... I think he genuinely, wants and desires Gimli's help here. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Very good. Field trip time then. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for bearing with me. So, by the way, just one last little side note. If that process seemed really, really laborious to you, that's how I roll, right? A lot of times, people ask me things like, people will say to me things like, your Hobbit book was really insightful. Like, I don't understand. Like, where do you get your insights from? That's how. What I just did. That's exactly how I do it. Right. There's no other magic. Reading things carefully, thinking things through logically. Like, that's how I roll. And it's not glamorous, but it gets you there. It gets you there in the end. Anyway, okay. All right. Let's do field trip. Valori, good evening.
Good evening. Will we live to see the end? That's the question.
Well, sure, we'll live to see the end. I'm sure most of us anyway.
But no, I'm with you. We're doing this because we can, and we won't get another opportunity to do this. So.
That's right.
So, well, like, I don't know. It's like my theory with the Watcher, though, is like I was more in the sense of that made him the weakest in the group and easiest to pick off.
Possibly, yeah. Though that still seems to me like, it could be a kind of an instinctive thing, I suppose. I was going to say that still would argue a little bit of, like, thinking through the situation on its part. Like, this one has been compromised by shadow and therefore is probably still weakened. But it's possible.
Well, I thought it was more instinctual, like a lion picking off a sick gazelle.
Yeah.
Where are we dropping, by the way? Where are we?
Oh, we're still in the Dolven-view.
Dolven-view. Okay, I don't know if I have a port to that. I think, mine's still Durin's Threshold.
Oh, okay.
Put me in your group and I'll summon you.
Okay.
There we go. Rowan says there's also a fast goat from the 21st Hall if you can get there.
That's okay, we're sorting it.
All right.
There we go.
Very good. I'm back.
Yep.
All right.
I didn't think it was anything instinctual. Like, when you were talking about a monologue, like, and somebody immediately said you will set up a Squid King, and then all of a sudden I'm hearing this whole thing is an evil monologue done by Squidward from SpongeBob SquarePants.
Right. Yeah.
Dark Lord, you'll set up a king.
Right. Probably not.
Okay. No.
So
I was thinking more like blub blub, sick guy, pick off, easy.
Right. Probably. Yeah. Again, I don't see any reason for rationality. Anyway, we ended up at the doorway to Zelim Melek last time. Slightly randomly. slightly. Oh, so by the way, oh yeah, so Colin, who is level 7, we could probably get you here, I think, and you might be safe enough.
We can't.
We can't?
Nope, because it's too high level. They can't be summoned in.
Can't be summoned in. Okay.
Yeah, not that you'd last very long.
No, but we're in a safe-ish area, but I guess they'd probably come from far and wide to hunt him down, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
anyway,
burnt.
okay.
Hello,
like that time the doe chased me underground at Hennethanoon.
or the moose incident.
Yeah, or the moose incident, exactly. Yeah. That was one of the funniest Lotro stream videos I've ever seen. I just
punted me like a football. It was amazing how much air I got.
Moment. Okay. Anyway, all right. So let's look around here. Oh, hang on, Amathorn. That's cheating. I don't want to read their descriptions. I want to see what we can see. All right. So over here, this is the. Is this the geode side?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So here we are on the top terrace of that geode courtyard down there.
It's an egg.
Yeah, it's an egg with a map on. We were looking at that last time. Oh. Look at that. Look at that tunnel straight across from us.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely a thoroughfare over there.
Yeah, sure looks like it. Okay, so... All right. So on this side, we're at the top part of that terrace. How did we got up over this way, right?
Yeah. For those having trouble seeing in game, best thing is to just pan your camera out as far as you can.
Yeah, that's one of the. It's challenging.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll be up too. We'll be up close in a bit.
Okay, so we came up this path.
Uh-huh.
Which starts down on the side terrace above the geode.
Yeah.
Down here.
Yeah.
Okay, so once again, this is built inside and up against the irregularities of this cavern. So they seem to have done relatively little, like, clearing of the cavern.
Yeah, that was an 80-degree drop over there.
Yeah.
These mountain goats?
Okay, so we got these galleries here have nothing. There's nothing up here. This is just like a viewing gallery, viewing the. Hey, look, no wall. Viewing the geode.
There's runes on the geode.
Yeah, I think you missed that time. It's a map.
Yeah.
It's a map. It's a world map. Yeah.
Okay.
We looked at that a couple weeks ago. It's pretty cool.
I don't think that was there last time I was in Moria.
No, it was always there.
Was it always there? I think it's better lit now than it used to be.
That's possible.
Definitely looks better lit. Yeah, anyway. It just looks like the Viking graffiti you see that says, "This is very high indeed. Wulfric was here."
Yep. Okay, so anyway, so we've got this multi-level, these multiple galleries here, but there's nothing in here, it's just like viewing. And so this whole side of this Dolven-view area is all oriented on that central geode place. Well, there's another big building across the way there. Well, we'll have a look around there later. Let's stick where we are here. Okay. So this slope, which is not, this is not ruin, this is original, right? Yeah. This is not ruin, this is original, I think. This shoulder of rock is what they've kept in use. So they put up a ramp here. Mm-hmm. Out of blocks, almost like to maintain the continuity, right? They had a ramp, a natural ramp that they used up here, and then they have another one up here. So this is the central place where you can still see down towards the geode. You can't see the geode from way up here, but you're still looking down over there. And then on the other side, we're viewing... There's no evidence of rooms in here. Like, this is all open. Open to the sky / roof, right? Yeah, it is like an agora, Rowan. That's a really good description.
What's an agora? That's one I haven't heard before.
Oh, agora, like it's a Greek marketplace, like agoraphobia, like where you're afraid of crowds and stuff because it's...
Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense.
The marketplace, yeah.
Yeah, isn't it fear of shopping?
That's also agoraphobia, I guess. But yeah. So like, exactly, a big open place for markets. Because over on this side, this platform doesn't seem to me to show any evidence of having had something built up. But like, it seemed to just be a platform. Like, I don't see any crumbled or broken pillar bases or anything else. This is just a platform. Not like a diving board, but a viewing platform. To
Maybe
look
there
out
was a pulley system here.
over the cavern. Man, I don't know. I think it's also about the views.
Yeah? You wonder if there was more of those phosphorescent lights. You know, the natural phosphorescent lights here. Well, wait, we got some broken mirrors lying around, don't we?
I think we saw one. Yes.
Yeah, there was one here in the corner over here. So, presumably, this place was better lit. You can see one across from us. On the other side.
Mirror? Down there?
Yeah, one of the...
Okay.
One of the one of the reflective lights over there. And we just went past one. There was one up there before we came down the ramp. So presumably this was a better view and it was all beautifully lit.
Right. Yes, presumably. And based on what we saw at the entrance to Zelamelech last time, that other 5 dwarf gate straight across there with the waterfalls coming out of the dwarf mouths, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna guess that that's another exit of this major cavern.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Hey, it's got that big luminous crystal in the middle. Maybe the light was going to be aimed there and it just sort of split apart like a disco ball.
Maybe. That would be pretty. Yeah, so this top area seems to be, you've got like the geode and the entryway on the one side. And then on this side, you've got all these stairs that lead down to these 2 other exits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they lead to the rest of this, the rest of this cavern. We'll go over there in a second. But also to, also like to the northern caverns up by the crossroads, and then out to Zelamelech that way, the major road.
Mm-hmm.
So this high point, and remember that this is very much being treated as if it were like outdoor terrain, right? I don't see much evidence that they're carving away large chunks of this cavern. They're living in this cavern and they're building on it like you might build on the ground, but they don't seem to be tunneling it out as far as I can see in general.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the mineral deposits are just left to accumulate where they are.
Yeah, so I think that this high place in the middle, this agora-like place, I really do like that metaphor, does seem like a natural division between, looking at the map here, to the west of here, the land stretching out towards the exit, the Eregian exit. And then on the other side of this divide, of this ridge here in the middle of this cavern, you have the exit north to Durin's Way and east to Zelamelech.
Also, the roof areas would provide some measure of safety in event of like earthquakes or whatever as well. I think you need those little barriers between you and just mountain.
Possibly. Of course, ceilings can also be helpful in caves for warmth as well. like to keep heat in if you have fires.
Oh
but
yeah, and
given
to
that
keep
we're
off
underground,
moisture from the ceilings.
right? Yeah, but given that it's that we're underground, they probably wouldn't have. It would the temperature. I don't know how much the temperature would have varied. Probably not that much.
Well, yeah, you think about it, it'd be like geothermic. It'd be sort of a constant 65 degrees.
Right, or like 55 or whatever. It can be cool down in caves, but yeah, you would think.
Well, that's what geothermic heating is. It's heating in winter, and it's cooling in summer because it's at a constant temperature.
Exactly. So we've got this.
Yeah, dwarves like it cold. They got those big old beards.
Right, I suspect so. This is a grand house.
Yeah. Government or residential?
Well, there's no statuary.
Yeah.
Is that an image of crystals on the side of that?
Almost looks like a logo.
Yeah, doesn't it? It looks like a logo that represents light crystals.
It represents the crystals behind us.
Yeah.
The big white crystals.
Right. Well, and though they're the color of the ones on the little braziers in front of us there, but yeah, it does look like a logo.
It's like, welcome to Dolven-view. Oh, this is the cooling chamber.
Yeah, that's what it says, but of course.
Yeah, I'm not... What part is the cooling chamber?
Yeah. And like...
Are these pits? Are these pits the cooling chambers?
And then we've got this one
supposed to be
here.
some sort of release?
This one has just a single door.
Yeah. Nope, nothing up here.
There's
Yeah.
a mirror hand above the doorway.
This doorway?
You know, the one that Valori's at. The front door that we just came across the bridge.
The first one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like how they have their doorknobs placed similar to hobbits.
What, in the middle of the door?
Yeah, in the middle.
A mirror hand?
Yeah, because those are basically hands that they use as mirrors.
Oh yeah, I guess it could be that.
What, are you talking about the logo?
You
Yeah.
have the logo that kind of looks like a broken hand. It's like gold and silver.
Yeah, that's what we were looking at.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah,
it was I thought it was mimicking the white crystals behind us, because it looks like,
That's what it looks like.
yeah, it looks like white crystals, but it does look a little like the clamshell shape of the mirror, except for the one part jutting off to the side doesn't match.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's broken off.
It does look like a hand, I agree.
Do you
But it
wanna
does look to
compare
me most
the-
like the crystals. I mean, or French fries, but I assume it's probably more likely to be crystal than French
the
fries.
golden arches, man.
Welcome to Burger Dwarf. Can I take your order?
Yeah.
There's actually a couple of those hand things back in the Dolven if you want to compare.
Okay. Could be a house sigil.
Oh man, I'm seeing things that not work above the logo. Looks like a woman's face. Pretty sure it's not work.
Yeah, it is not work, but I agree. It looks like a face.
Not a woman wearing a Carnivale mask.
But I'm also reminded that you don't know that they're mirrors because it's a quest.
Yeah, but also I remember the mirrors and seeing them intact, and I think they're clam shaped. They almost look like scallop shells.
Do we... So hang on. You said there were some of those logos down back here too?
Mm-hmm.
Further?
And there's one over here to the left, over by Wathi. And then there's a better looking one over here to the right.
Well,
Oh, I
This is
see, in the
lesser
ground over here.
I love these purple flags, which I'm sure you've already looked at.
If you come over here to the red circle, there's another one that's a better view. It's like almost intact. Well, a little bit.
Uh-huh. I see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess it does have a little thummy sticking out. Maybe they made the mirrors to look like the crystals.
I think so.
That furthers my theory that they were supposed to direct their light into the crystal to refract and
Yeah.
light up the room.
I think that's exactly it. I think they're
Yay.
I do think that they're designed to look like the crystals. I think that it's designed to look like both the crystals and a hand. That thumb thing, I think, is not a coincidence.
Mm-hmm. But I also feel like, well, it could be a coincidence that the crystal is shaped that way, because I would see a dwarf, unearthing something like that and saying it's too beautiful to be messed with.
Sure, no, but this is an artifact, not some. The crystals could be unearthed, but exactly as Colin was saying, it's like how power stations in real life are often marked with lightning bolt logos, right? To you, like the fact that the crystals emit light, so the lighting system that they have with the mirrors are made iconographically to represent. So, okay, so that one pointed to that one down there, the one you saw from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I think it likely that.
Or maybe there was a brazier lit in front of it or something.
Well, possibly. But that light wouldn't be very bright. The mirrors were for sunlight, right?
Yeah, the mirrors were for sunlight, and I'll just pretend I never saw that Mythbusters episode.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Well, then again, this is white, which would be very reflective.
All right.
If it was just like a white polished marble, I think that would actually work really well for diffused light.
I don't know what this is supposed to be lined up with. The other one? No?
There might be more we can't see, or some that were destroyed.
Might be. This one is in a weird, wonky location, I have to say. But okay.
Yeah, this one, the hand shape is more intact.
Yeah, so...
Now we know.
Sorry, so so they make the mirrors look like crystals and like a hand. Like crystals because it's associated with light. And like a hand because they, it's like the hand of the dwarves reflecting the light. Like they know they're, they're shaping the light. They're bringing the light down. So yeah, it's like a dwarf hand and also like a crystal. And I wonder, I think it is possible, I think, that they shone the sunlight onto this huge crystal. That seems to me very possible. And then the fact that now that thing on the building over here, the icon on the building, the hand icon on the building, I don't think that is not itself a mirror. It is
I think
a representation of the mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a representation of the mirror, and therefore not the only clue. The other clues we have as to what this building was are A, it's huge. B, it has one door and a relatively small door. And so does that other building over there. Same thing, flight of steps leading up to a single door, though there's no decoration. There's no icon above the door there.
Yeah.
It is possible, JJ, it is possible that they manufacture the mirrors here. Possibly.
Or this is the designated mirror keeper's house. Like a lighthouse keeper.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, Andrew, we'd have to know, like, where the reflective pathway goes. That the one that we were looking at to the, northwest of us here seemed to be oriented towards the one that's down below there, on the little shoulder of the land down below this thing. And that one could have been aimed up at the crystal, but we don't know like where else there are. I mean, they're distributed not only like laterally but vertically as well, so it's hard not knowing to trace the exact path that they had in mind there. That last one we were looking at, the one over in the corner near the milestone, is, as I say, to me it looks like it's in a pretty wonky position. It's so blocked by columns, it's hard to imagine how it did anything. But then, you know, I'm not a dwarf. What do I know? And as you say, there might be ones that we're missing. And Rowan, I agree. I think there is lots of evidence, for which I would point to the primary evidence being that little platform that we were looking at before, to say they clearly really loved looking out here. This was a great view, right?
Its name is Dolven-view.
This is like a view of the mountains, right?
Yeah. Do we know what Dolven means when they reference the name here as Dolven-view?
Past participle of delve, more or less.
So yeah, that's literally what it means. It's the view we dug and found.
Yes, we dug and found this great view. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I can't think of any other. I can't think of any synonyms for Dolven. It's like the dugged.
Well, Dolven is a very dwarf kind of word.
Yes. Will have going to have been dug.
Yes, exactly. Okay, I feel like I've got a better grasp on this. One last thing that I would point out. We're going to see, and next time we will see, statuary. Dwarf images, actually. But notice that up here, where the focus is on the view and on the crystals in the light mirrors, there's no statuary. There are no dwarves up here. Dwarf statues, I mean. And that seems to me significant. That they weren't trying up here, like, in this grand setting, right? Focused on the view. Even on the other side, where the view is not so spectacular, but you are looking down at the geode, right? The great geode. On all of those places, we don't have any dwarf statuary. We just have the view, just as they have done comparatively little, like, you know, concealment, or, you know, they've built on the landscape, like landscape, but they haven't wrecked the landscape. They haven't tunneled through the landscape. They haven't, they didn't delve into the landscape. Anyway, cool.
I guess it'd be like putting a statue in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, exactly. That does seem to be the kind of thing. Now, when we go down into the canyon, we'll find some, right? But I think it'll be interesting to see, first of all, what we see in with those statues themselves, and what usage the statues are being put to, what that suggests about the mindset, their sort of cultural mindset here. Okay, all right. I'm feeling better about this. Next time we'll wander down. We wandered through there. We kind of we were looking at those columns, like the big ones that go to the ceiling over there. That's what led us over there last time. So we went kind of straight there and ended up going to the entrance to Zelamelech. But we'll look through the area we kind of ran through in order to get there. I also have a vague feeling that we missed an area up in the north. But anyway, we'll continue our explorations next time. In any case, it's getting late now, so we should sign off for the evening. But thanks everybody for joining us. We should be back next week. I'm actually not traveling for a little while here, so I hope to be around the next few weeks.
A reprieve.
There we go. So thanks everybody. Have a good night, and I will see you guys next week. Bye now.
Bye.